Hello, everyone. Welcome again. It is nice to have you, everyone, here with us. Um, Again, welcome to this second session of the SBC workshop series. We have here today with us Sona, who is going to be your main facilitator and trainer during this session. And just for those of you who are joining us for the first time, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. And before we start with Sona, and before I hand it over to Sona, I just want to thank our donors, without whom this workshop would not be possible. So USAID, Irish Aid, UNICEF, and Global Affairs Canada. Welcome, everyone. And now I'm going to be handing over to Sona.
Thank you, Sanya. Sorry about the lag. It just takes a minute to unmute. Thank you, Sanya. Thank you so much. And welcome everybody from my side too. Thank you for joining us again in this workshop. And for those of you who've joined for the first time, welcome to the series. Please introduce yourselves in the chat. As mentioned, we have not slotted a time for introductions this time because we did know each other a little bit in the last workshop. So today we are going to be talking about the nuts and bolts of SBC. We have we've tried to understand what is social and behavior change, what is it that we need to start doing a little differently, how do we start approaching SBC a little differently, and we did a little bit of what we call the formative research by with the exercise that we did in the end on open-ended questions. Now, today we are going to go further on that and talk about, we'll do a quick recap. And if there's any feedback, any reflection that any of you have on the last workshop, if there's anything that wasn't clear to you, we have a small short time to share that. We will then get into the SBC strategy development process. We will quickly go through that. And then as part of the strategy development process is prioritizing behaviors, doing formative research, and then moving from the formative research to the elements of the strategy. So we are going to, while the process is intensive, it's usually a 3-day workshop that we do for the strategy development. But what we will try and do during these 2 hours today is to give you a feel of what it is like to use the different tools and the tools to prioritize behaviors. How do you make a decision on what method to use for formative research, and then how do you use the formative research findings to develop your strategy and to decide on what kind of activities we need to be including in our strategy. So it's just going to be, and that's why this is kind of an immersive workshop where you get the feel of a few things, but it's not the entire process. Yeah, so that's what we are hoping to accomplish in the 2 days today and in the 2 hours today. And as I mentioned the last time, if there's anything that I say that is not clear, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or raise your hand and we will request you to unmute and speak, or you can even put it in the chat. This is an interactive workshop. It's not a webinar, so feel free to interact as much as possible. And your experiences and your inputs and perspectives is something that we all will learn from as well. We will be learning from each other. So a quick, let's spend a few minutes on doing a recap and seeking any clarification if you want, or if there's any feedback that you want to say. What I can, to start off the recap, maybe what I can request all of you to do is to think of the session last week and write down any one word or phrase that you remember or that you thought was important in the session that we did the last week, in the discussions that we had the last week. So please put that in the chat, and then we can move forward from there. And then maybe I can ask a few of you to expand on what you've written. Okay, use of open-ended questions. Good, great. Social norm, attitude, or belief, behavior. Yeah. Okay, anything else? The socio-ecological model, using open-ended and close-ended questions. Definition of social norms, attitudes, and beliefs. Okay, influences of behavior change, influencers of behavior change. Yes. What influences behavior change? Okay, would anyone now like to expand on any of the phrases that have been written? Great. Janada, yes, go ahead.
Okay, from last week, I learned what influences behavioral change, and from the key points here, we saw that social norms can influence behavioral change, self-efficacy, positive and negative consequences,
Absolutely.
risk, perceived risk, perceived
Okay.
severity, cultures, and other points. So that's
Okay,
just it.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. There's God's will, the will of the God, or even action efficacy. Those are the various determinants that influence behavior change. Okay, anyone else would like to say anything from the last workshop? Otherwise, I'm going to honest. Please go ahead and share what you've written in the chat.
Okay, I will just speak about, I think, the last part, which talked about how we can gather more information about maybe certain practices or behaviors in a given scenario. So we were actually taught that we use a combination of open-ended questions and also the closed questions. And open-ended questions allow the respondent to give you more information, and you can also probe, but we can use a mix to get some details of maybe what we will be gathering from be it a community or be it individuals. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So the objectives for today are that we want to have an enhanced understanding on how to prioritize nutrition behaviors. Even the nutrition behaviors that we work on are a whole set of behaviors, a long list of behaviors, and how do we prioritize those behaviors so that we can focus and make sure that that behavior change does happen. We are going to learn about the types of formative research and what are the tools for decision making that we can use while deciding about what kind of formative research do we require for our program. And then we will build an understanding on the strategy development process and tools. And all throughout, I will be talking about tools. There are several tools available, several approaches for social and behavior change that are out there. And there are guides and tools available. I've selected a few that I thought were relevant for the session, and we will be, we will be trying out, practicing using those tools. But also, I'll share a list of the tools with you, the resources with you towards the end of the workshop. We will move forward. So this should answer your question in terms of the steps in SBC strategy development process. What we see on the right, and I've taken this from the USAID Advancing Nutrition Program, which has developed a whole set of tools for strategy development, for prioritizing behaviors, and as well as for monitoring and evaluation. So I will share the link to the resources at the end. The steps for quality, is there are 6 steps that have been mentioned as steps for quality SBC programming. It starts with, and it's not very different from any other program cycle, but there's just a little more emphasis on the strategic planning. So we prioritize behaviors first, then we do, we analyze the research findings. That is, we conduct research and then analyze research findings. We confirm and refine the priority behaviors that we've identified initially. And then we highlight factors and actors that are most closely related to the refined behaviors. So here the factors would be the determinants or the barriers and motivators that influence behavior change that we can find out from the formative research findings. And actors would be the influencers who will, the people in the community, people in the family who are able to influence the behaviors and social norms. Then we create linked pathways from factors to program activities. So how can we, the factors, the formative research helps us identify what are the different factors that are influencing behaviors right now. And how do we then link that to program activities? So what kind of activities do we, who needs to do what, and what kind of activities do we need to include in our program so that we are able to address the factors that have been identified in the formative research. And then based on the research and the priority behaviors, we then develop the SBC strategy, but the prioritization of behaviors and the analysis of the research, the formative research that we do, all of that forms a part of the SBC strategy as well, including other elements like activities and the different media channels that we will be using, as well as the action plan and the monitoring and evaluation plan. So what we are going to do today, so from the list that was given in the poll, developing and refining program objectives is not part of SBC. You would already have a program objective, and it's based on the program objective that you would then develop and refine your SBC objectives. So based on what the program is trying to achieve and what is it that social and behavior change needs to achieve, we would then identify the SBC objectives within the strategy. We will move on to prioritizing behaviors. Now, the reason I had mentioned that all IYCF behaviors in every context are not high priority behaviors is because behavior change is complex, right? We saw from the last session that there are several determinants that we need to think of, several factors that we need to think of, several layers of whether at the individual level, at the family level, at the community level, that we need to be thinking of. So to try and work on several behaviors together and make them all high priority, we will probably end up increasing knowledge but not changing behavior, or not giving enough focus on changing behaviors and social norms, because there are so many behaviors that we are trying to promote. So it's important to prioritize behaviors. And even from within the IYCF behaviors, we will look at different aspects within our context and then be able to prioritize which ones are high priority, which ones are medium priority. And that does not mean that if anything is medium or low priority, that we stop promoting those altogether, but the focus on those will be less than the focus on the high priority behaviors. The high priority behaviors will have many more activities that will be promoting the high priority behaviors. So to prioritize the behaviors, we start with determining the nutritional status or the program outcomes. And I will show you, we will go through the tool that I've picked this out from. Again, this is the Advancing Nutrition Program tool, which helps us prioritize the behaviors. For each of the relevant behaviors, we will then analyze the behavior gap. Is there a difference between how large is the gap between the existing prevalence of the behavior versus what it should be? Or let's say 80% of the target audience performing the behavior. So if the gap is larger, then the priority is higher. Its potential to impact the results is something that we would again gauge. And is it feasible to change, or is it something that is not feasible to change at all? Then we will, once we've done that, then we narrow the behaviors of interest and then try and fit it within the program and the policy context. So for each of so the first round of shortlisting is done in the second step. And then we do a second round of shortlisting by seeing which are the behaviors that are responding to our program outcomes, and which are the ones that are a policy fit based on the context. And based on that, then we select the final prioritized behaviors. And ideally, we should have about 3 to 5 high priority behaviors, especially if we have a short-term program, but like we do in nutrition and emergencies. The number of behaviors that we're promoting, high priority behaviors, should be restricted to maybe 2 or 3, so that we are able to see some results. So talking about nutrition and emergencies, there are specific things that we need to consider while working on nutrition and emergencies, as we are all probably aware. I mean, we are all working on nutrition and emergencies, and we would be aware of the programmatic aspects that we need to be considering when working in a crisis situation. But how it affects behaviors is something that we have tried to put down here on the slide. So we know that emergencies, there may be population that are displaced, the basic services, whatever existed, would get interrupted. There may be loss of livelihoods and crops, depending on what kind of emergency there is. There's limited access to food, limited access to health services, hygiene and sanitation conditions get affected, and access to water is affected, and there's general disruption of health, nutrition, and feeding practices. So all of this results in compromised dietary intake and increased risk of diarrhea and infectious diseases, both of which then further contribute to malnutrition and increased mortality. So the SBC focus in this case would need to be on things that have been affected by the emergency, by the crisis. So if the dietary intake has been compromised, that's something that we may need to take more note of. And if there's an increased risk of diarrhea and infectious diseases, then that's something that we would definitely need to include within our program, even if we don't have specific outcomes or outputs related to these indicators related to infectious diseases, because they affect malnutrition, and is why we would need to take them into consideration. Okay, now let's get into a group exercise. Okay, so this is what you should see. This is the tool that is for prioritizing multisectoral nutrition behaviors. The steps in this are the ones that I had mentioned on the slide. What we do here is we try and understand first, and I've just put some figures from Nigeria into this, from the Nigeria MICS, I think, into this for our exercise purposes into the table. So we first need to understand what the nutrition status is. So we look at our quantitative data and try to see what is the stunting, what is the underweight, wasting, anemia under 5 children, what are our program outcomes. And here, just as an example, I've put an increased access to nutrition services for prevention of malnutrition among children under 2 years of age. And girls or boys under age of 5 years have increased and more equitable access to better quality nutrition services for early detection and treatment of severe acute malnutrition. So we have these two program objectives, outcomes, and we can probably look at the behaviors based on this. So now for each of the behaviors, so the behaviors are listed here, and there are three sets that we're working on right now. So diet and care during pregnancy, breastfeeding, and complementary feeding of young children. So again, I've put down some figures. The figures in orange are just random figures. I've not got them from any source because I couldn't get the information. But ideally, this information, the behavior prevalence, the second column, should be information that you get from your program baseline or from the any other quantitative data that you have in the area. So we have the list of behaviors on the left in the first column. We have behavior prevalence here. And as an example, I've filled in the rest of the columns for the first one. So if the behavior is eat sufficient quantities of food at appropriate frequencies, the current behavior prevalence is around 32%. Then the behavior gap. Now the behavior gap is what percentage of the target population is currently practicing the behavior. The behavior gap is how much change is needed for 80% of the target population to practice the behavior. So that would be the behavior gap. And that we have to measure we have to rank it between 1 to 5. So if the gap is higher, then we rank it closer towards 5. And if the gap is less, the behavior gap is less, then we rank it closer to 1. Then the next column is potential to impact results. So to what extent will addressing the behavior gap help achieve the program outcomes? Now we have to think of the program outcomes that we've written here. And then potential ability to change is given the available resources, including the constraints. Does the existing research show that the behavior can shift? Can we actually change with those behaviors? And what is the potential to influence the behavior within our context? So here in this case, eating sufficient quantities of food at appropriate frequencies, the current behavior prevalence is 32%. Behavior gap is, I've put it at 4. Potential to impact results is 3. And the average is 3.5. So the average is average of 4 and 3. So 4 plus 3, 7 and divided by 2. Simple math. And then the potential ability to change, yes or no. So I put in yes here because there is an ability to change. So now what I will do is, if we can, in 3 groups, quickly go through this. So the first group, group 1, will look at diet, care, and care during pregnancy, these 3 behaviors. The second group will look at breastfeeding behaviors. And the third group will look at complementary feeding of young children. If we can look at all this and fill in all the columns for the rest of the behaviors. Okay, somebody has already started filling it in. Let me, please hold on right now. Let me shift you all to 3 groups and then maybe you can work on it. And we'll just give 5 minutes for these groups and then we'll come back. Okay. I'm going to randomly allocate all of you to 3 groups. And I've opened the room and you have 5 minutes to quickly fill in all these columns. So each group will fill in only these three behaviors, okay? I've opened the rooms, so please go to the rooms and start the group work there. Now we look at, and we're just taking these 3, but there are in the template, in the tool itself, there are other behaviors as well. And based on the program that we're doing, that we are implementing, we can add or remove some of the behaviors that are there. So we've only taken this as an exercise, as an example, to be able to work on it further. So I'm going by whatever decision the group has taken about the behaviors. I'm hoping the marking was clear to everyone. Now the behavior gap is what we're looking at between current behavior and let's say of the target audience performing adopting the behavior, and the potential to impact results. And that's based on available research as well. Oh, the third one is not. There's a problem here, right? So now what we do is, as the next step, we look at just the averages. Okay. So we have 4.5, 4, 4. Is it you can't type in the third row, is it? And that's a problem maybe. So I think this is anyways less than 3. This is also 4.5. So we have 2 4.5s, 3 4.5s, and 2 4s. Right? So these are the higher averages. Now, when we go to the next part, we take these behaviors. So eating sufficient quantities of food at appropriate frequencies, eating a variety of diverse and rich foods. Both these, all three seem to be high priority. We copy it here. In these. Okay, and I'm just taking 3 of them, but we would take all the higher scores, the behaviors which have higher scores. We would take them all and put them in this next section of narrowing the behaviors. Now what we will do is we will look at the program fit and policy fit. So when we're looking at the program fit, we will go back to our program outcomes. We had said that the program outcome is increasing access to nutrition services to prevent malnutrition among children under 2 years, and for treatment and early detection and treatment of severe acute malnutrition for girls and boys under the age of 5 years. Now, keeping these two in mind as the program outcomes, how would you then rate these behaviors? As a program fit, eating sufficient quantities of food at appropriate frequencies. This is for the pregnant woman. If you had to score between 1 and 5, what score would you give this behavior? Keeping in mind the program outcomes. Anyone? If you're writing in the chat, it's a little difficult for me to see in between. So please unmute and speak. What score would you like to give this?
Hello?
Yes, Valeria.
I would give it a 4.
A 4.
Yes, a 4.
And okay. And based on your program outcomes. So I'm talking about the program outcome being this. The program outcomes are increasing access to nutrition services for prevention of malnutrition among children under 2 years, and girls and boys in the age of 5 years, early detection and treatment of severe acute malnutrition. For this, and this behavior talks about pregnant women eating sufficient quantities of food. So while it's important as a program outcome, it's important as a behavior if you are working with pregnant and lactating women as well, and your program outcome is about that as well. Whereas here, for just as an example, I've put the program outcomes mainly as children under 2 and children under 5, prevention of malnutrition and treatment, early detection and treatment of malnutrition. So with that in mind, would you still keep it a 4? 4 is high program fit and 1 is low program fit.
I think in this case, if we are dealing, our program outcome is looking for children below 2 years. I think a 4 would be high. Probably I'll give it a 1 or a 2.
Okay. Valeria, would you agree?
Yes,
Yes.
after what you just explained, it makes sense. I would give it a 1.
You would give it a 1, okay.
Hmm.
Okay, let's put a 1. Now, when we're looking at national or subnational policy priorities, is it a priority or is it not a priority at the national or subnational level for the government? Eating sufficient quantities of pregnant women, nutrition of pregnant women, is that a priority for the government?
It is a high priority, yes.
Yes, so it's a yes or no. So in this case, we put a yes. So the final set of behaviors that we do. So we do this for each of the high scoring behaviors that we've taken from the previous table into this table. And we identify whether it's a program fit and whether it's a policy fit. And then from among these, the behaviors that are higher, that receive a higher score in program fit and are yes in terms of national or subnational policies, policy fit, those are the ones that will be high priority for us, will be finally identified as high priority. And we should try and restrict them, as I said, especially for short-term programs, let's try and restrict them to 3 to 5 behaviors as high priority. And again, we should not look at those behaviors by themselves. We should then look at it from the perspective of what is the data telling us, what is the context, how difficult is it to change, and from our program perspective, how is it more relevant or less relevant. So is that a clearer, I mean, is this step clear to everyone? Any questions on this?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yes.
So this is how we would then arrive at the final prioritized behaviors, and we list them down here. So this tool actually is very useful to identify which are our prioritized behaviors. And when we say prioritized behaviors, we could again then decide these are high priority, these are medium priority. We would very rarely find low priority behaviors, but we can definitely have high priority and medium priority. And that would then help us to see how much more focus we need to give on promoting a particular behavior. Yes. Moving on. Once we've prioritized the behaviors, now we need to think about formative research, and we need to identify what kind of research do we want to do, formative research, what is it that we need to understand further about our audience, about the behaviors, and about the barriers, motivators, and determinants. So the recommended steps for formative research is that we first start off with a literature review, a desk review. We try and identify for the behaviors that we've prioritized, what is the information that is available, what is the information that is a gap, what do we need to find out more about. And if there is a lot of gap in information and we don't have sufficient information, only then do we think about doing additional formative research in the either qualitative, mostly it's a qualitative method that is used. We would then choose the appropriate methodology for additional research to fill in the information gaps based on the time available, the access to expertise that we have, what is our behavior or intervention focus, and the information gaps, the level of information gaps that need to be addressed. And of course, throughout the formative research, we need to keep in mind ethical considerations. This is a list of, and now you will see the answer to your second question in the poll. I mean, it's not an exhaustive list of methods, but these are just some of the more common qualitative and quantitative methods that are used for formative research. Knowledge, attitude, and practices surveys is used very often. Household surveys, reviews of the health center log, and supply audits are also quantitative methods that are used as formative research. In qualitative methods, there are some that you will be familiar with and some that you will probably not be familiar with. So if you want me to expand on any one of these, please write it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to go into at least one of them in a little detail. So group interviews, focus groups, in-depth interviews, barrier analysis, household observations, facility observations, trials of improved practices, positive deviance inquiry, and guided photo narratives. So these are some of the more common qualitative methods that have been used. The reason we think household observations has been put as a qualitative method is because we don't do it in large numbers. We don't have a sample size that we are using. We observe only some of the houses, and the information that we are getting from the household is not based on a predetermined questionnaire with fixed answers. We are just going there to observe what are the behaviors that the family or the household is adopting, and what are their culture, what is their practice, what is their routine during the day. So those are all qualitative information that is used for developing the behavior change strategy, and hence it is part of the qualitative methods. Barrier analysis, okay. Barrier analysis is, oops, sorry. It's a very quick method of qualitative method of formative research, which kind of uses a little bit of quantifying of the findings as well. Here we look at 42 doers and 42 non-doers. And by doers, we mean those who are already practicing the behavior. And by non-doers, we mean those who are not practicing the behavior. So within the same community, we identify 42 doers, we identify 42 non-doers, and interview them, conduct interviews with them through a structured questionnaire, which helps us identify which are the determinants that are influencing the doers and which are the determinants that are influencing the non-doers. The advantage of the barrier analysis is that you can put all your findings in an Excel sheet, and it automatically calculates the determinants that are the most prominent ones, and those are the ones that you can then focus on for your behavior change strategy. So that's very quickly about the barrier analysis. And if required, please let me know in the chat. I can send you a separate link on the barrier analysis as well. I'm now going to go a little bit into guided photo narratives, because this is not something that has been used very often. So let's do a quick sample. Has anyone heard of or used guided photo narratives before? Let me know with a thumbs up if you have. Not that I can see the thumbs up, but okay. So we're going to do a quick guided photo narrative as a sample. No, okay. Right. Now, all of you need to think of yourselves as someone from your community, okay? And give me your responses accordingly. If you can unmute and give me the responses, that will be quicker, because I have to go to the chat each time to listen to read the comments. So think of yourselves as people from the community in a project area that you're working in, and respond according to how the community person would respond. Okay. Take a look at this picture. What do you see in this picture?
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes, I can hear you.
I can see a lovely father guiding her child on how to eat nutritious meal, and the child was
Okay.
nearly killing learning it from the father. I think the practical
Okay.
knowledge being imparted on the child.
Okay, great. And so when you see this, what is the feeling that you get?
I see this. There was love, mutual love between the father and the daughter.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful. Now, could this be a person from your community?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it could be a lesson, because we learn things. Children tend to learn things from their parents quicker, because they see what
Okay.
we do and they learn from it.
Okay, okay, great. And what would other people think when they see a father teaching the child, teaching his daughter how to eat nutritious food, or taking care of her feeding practice? What would the others feel about that? People in the community.
Yeah, I think they'll be motivated and they will learn from that, because the life the child will live will be different from other children in the community. So they will
Okay.
be motivated to practice the same thing. While some
Okay.
will feel as if, for my community in Nigeria, most especially in this northern part, they feel that it's improper for a child to communicate directly with the father. most especially in the northern part of Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
they
it's
prefer,
not expected that the child.
Yes, the child, especially a female child, gets child to communicate directly to the father. They prefer it should be directly to the mother, not the father.
Okay. So this is not something that is done normally.
In the northern part of Nigeria, it's not something that is done.
In northern part of Nigeria.
But in southern and eastern part is done.
It is done.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Would anyone find this image objectionable? Either in the northern part or the southern part of Nigeria. Okay, we can't hear you anymore. Right, okay. So showing the picture, we got to know a little bit more. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, yes, it is. They will find it objectionable from the southern part. Even the other parts, because of the social behavioral change that being practiced in the community, their mindset has started changing. So some of them have now accepted this practice that it's normal for a dead child to interact with the father, while some deep within some are still a bit confused. But because of the constant SBC being done in the community, they are still accepting it as a normal practice, and objectively we're happy about it.
Okay, great. So now let's move to another picture. And I'm going to, I'm sorry, what is your name? It's coming as JDPC. Could you please share your name with us?
Okay, Ugochukwu from JDPC.
Okay, can you make that simpler? Can you repeat your name, please?
Ugo.
Okay,
yes.
Ugo is fine. Yes, thank you. I don't want to butcher your name, so a simple name will be. Okay, so what do we see in this picture? Let me clarify, the child here is a son, is a boy.
Something, a mother still guiding his son to feed, how to slice the fruit.
Okay.
Probably they're in the kitchen, how to cook, guiding his son how to cook. Or something like that.
Okay. I saw Melody raise her hand. Would you like to come in, Melody?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to answer your question.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, there's this woman with a son, teaching a son how to cut the vegetable.
Okay. So is this something that is common in your community?
In our community, currently they are trying to implement the gender issues containing this picture. They're trying to train the people to adopt this picture, because in our community they believe that the girl child is the one that is supposed to do the cooking itself, and they don't believe that even the male are supposed to have anything to do with the cookings or to feed their children. But it's something for the past 2 years that the ministry is trying to implement in our country.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Melody, for sharing that. And Ugo, what do people in your community believe? What would their reaction be if they saw this?
Yeah, just like what Melody said, here in Nigeria, not especially northern part, the teaching is off limit for a boy, a girl. So they believe the boy is just to go and play. The girl is for all the home cooking, and the rest is for the female and girl child. But the southern part, nowadays, the mothers, the parents teaching irrespective of agenda, they teach you the basic things of how to cook, how to wash plate, and the rest, not just domestic work that they need to be learned. But in northern part, they believe that the domestic affair is merely left for girl child. But coming to SBC, I think we're trying to change the mindset, which is gradual process and it's happening gradually.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I think the purpose of showing you these pictures was to show how using photographs, you can get information about a community, about their norms, about the gender norms, about the social norms, but also about, in this case, we've got information about what is being done in the community to change these norms. So we can use, and that's what guided photo narratives are about. We would identify, and in this case, it was about gender. I did want gender norms to come out from the information that I'm trying to get from all of you. So in this case, the picture was related to gender, but if depending on the topic that we want information about, we can use a series of photographs and start the questions with the photographs, and try and get more information. And this helps kind of distance the people. So it helps people open up also, because you're talking about something that you're seeing. You're not straight away talking about themselves, but slowly you would come to the community, you would come to themselves, and then you would get a lot more information. So this is just to demonstrate a quick demonstration on the guided photo narratives. Okay. Now, how do we make the research decisions? How do we decide? There are so many different types of methods for formative research. How do we decide which one is good for us to do? So we would design the research questions first. For selecting the methods, one of the tools that the Advancing Nutrition has is this thing called this flowchart called a decision tree. And the decision tree helps you identify what are the types of information that you still require, and what methods can you use to get that information. So it's a simple, so there in informative research, we need to understand the what, why, and how, right? That's what we're trying to find out about the behaviors. So if we know the information about what priority behaviors are practiced by key segments, if we don't have that information, then do we have resources to conduct a survey? If we don't have the resources to conduct a survey, then we do key informant interviews or community consultations. But if we do have resources to conduct a survey, then do you have qualitative data or local knowledge to focus the survey? If we don't have qualitative data, then we go back to key informant interviews. If we do have, then we do a proper full-fledged survey. So, and similarly for the whys and why key segments of participant groups practice current behaviors. Again, you go through a yes and no, and then based on that, you can filter down what is the kind of research methodology that the program requires, and for the how as well. So this is a decision tree for formative research. This is one of the methods that you can find out. You use one of the tools that you can use, and we will share the tool at the end of the workshop in the chat itself, but also if need be, we can share the list separately as well. But there is also another website, and there are a number of different ones, but there is one website called the Your Way to Behavior Change, which has a step-by-step guide for developing an SBC strategy. And in the formative research analysis, it includes a table which tells you if you have, depending on the time that you have, the kind of resources you have, what are the options available in terms of the formative research methods. It also gives you links to the resources or guides for those methods. So that's another tool or resource that you can use to make your formative research decisions. We are not putting in, we decided not to put in the resources links as we are speaking, because we thought it would be useful for you to have it all together, rather than having it in between the chat, which I have found a little troublesome in other programs and in other workshops. Yeah, we will share the link here for developing the strategy, okay? Now we move to the SBC strategy. Like I mentioned, we prioritize behaviors, we identify the primary participant groups and supporting actors. We identify key factors or determinants and the pathways from the determinants to the activities so which activity should we plan so that we can address the determinants? And based on that, we develop an implementation plan and monitoring and evaluation plans. And all this becomes part of the SBC strategy. So what we are going to do here today, because we will not have enough time to go through all of each step in detail. What we'll pick up the one step that I think is important, because from the perspective of the inputs to an SBC strategy. So which is the pathways to activities. So key factors and pathways to activities. So it's kind of the opposite of the exercise we did in the last workshop. In the last workshop, we did an exercise where we looked at, we did matching the determinants, right? We matched the activities to the determinants. Now we need to look at the determinants and then think about what are the activities that will help address those determinants. So we will again move into an exercise. So in scenario A, if you remember, we had a mother of a 4-month-old baby girl who's worried about her daughter being thin and was thinking of starting formula milk. And here the behavior that we are trying to promote is that mothers and caregivers of children less than 6-month-old feed their baby only breast milk, not even water. I've filled out some of these sections. So usually in the tool, you'll find the section blank. And based on your formative research, you will fill in these factors first. So we tried to find out in the exercise the last time, why is it that the mother is not feeding, exclusively breastfeeding? So the mother worries that her breast milk may not be enough and that her baby may be going hungry. Husband will not allow observation of the positioning and attachment, so the nutrition worker is not able to do anything there. So self-efficacy is one of the determinants that is one of the factors that is influencing the behavior. There is a perception that many women in the community use formula milk to feed their babies. So that is the norm, the social norm that is impacting the behavior. And access, I've just added this in. Mother has not been able to go to the nutrition center and has not received any counseling on breastfeeding. So she may not be sure whether her the positioning and attachment is correct or not. So access is another. I've filled in the first part of the supporting actors and actions. The question we need to answer here is, who needs to do what to reduce the barrier or support the motivator? So if this is the barrier, if self-efficacy is the barrier or the factor determinant, who needs to do what so that we can improve the self-efficacy? So here we are saying husband, father, and other family members support the mother for feeding the baby only breast milk. And mother needs to have increased confidence in breastfeeding her baby. So if these two, looking at these two, what are the activities that we can do to reduce, to sort of address or to enhance the self-efficacy? That is what we would put in the third column. So in this case, we could have demonstration videos of positioning and attachment, or we could have positive deviant mothers talking to this mother about the breastfeeding and how it needs to be done and how it is possible for a mother to do exclusive breastfeeding and that is beneficial for her child. So those are the kind of activities that we can put in the activity column. The idea here is that it should be linked. The factors, what are the determinants, and who needs to do what to be able to address the factors, and then what are the activities that will address both who needs to do what and what the factors that are affecting the behavior. Okay, and similarly for all the scenarios, I have put in the supporting actions that is as an example here. What I would request the groups to do once I move you into groups is to fill in the rest. So try doing at least one more supporting action and try doing at least 2 or 3 activities that can address the self-efficacy, the factors that have been identified here. Any questions here? I think this was just a quick glimpse of the kind of exercise that we need to do. It, of course, needs to be a lot more based on evidence. We would have a lot more information about the community through the formative research that will help us decide on what needs to be done and then what kind of activities will be effective. We don't have time to sort of share the ideas that we had come up with, but I'm sure that, I mean, I saw that there were a lot of good ideas that came up. What we need to be careful about is not to, when we're thinking about activities, let's not get stuck with nutrition education, sensitization activities, awareness generation activities. That we've been doing for a long time now. And that what that has resulted in, it has had some positive effects, but it has resulted in increase in knowledge, but it hasn't really impacted the behavior as much. Let's start thinking a lot more focused on what is the barrier. If self-efficacy is the determinant that I want to address, what kind of activities should I do? And there is enough evidence on activities that influence self-efficacy also. So doing a little bit of that research, understanding what are the activities that we can do to influence the self-efficacy. How do we make sure, for instance, the father who had tried out the MUAC a couple of times, but then he didn't continue it. If we still continue to give him all the nutrition education, if we still continue to give the same messages to him, it's not going to impact him. So what can we do differently so that we can make him realize the positive consequences or the negative consequences as a determinant, and then include that as an activity in our program. So I mean, the reason I thought this was important is because this is really the essence of your strategy, where the essence of your strategy will come from, because you're looking at the formative research, you're trying to understand the actors as well as what the actors need to do differently, and then what are the activities that will help them do that. So linking that pathway from the determinants to the activities is a critical part of the strategy development process. Sania has already shared the list of links of different resources, which will help you prioritize behaviors, which will help you identify which kind of formative research you need to do, and what are the different tools that are available for formative research, and the strategy development guides and tools as well. So with that, we come to the close of this session, which was the nuts and bolts. And I hope you got to know some of the nuts and bolts of SBC and how do we go about developing the social and behavior change strategy. What is the process? What are some of the tools that we can use? The next workshop is going to be on the creative hat. Now, the creative aspect is something that we don't really give too much attention to, and sometimes we do maybe, but how do we make sure that the creative aspect is in tune with the SBC strategy is something that we can talk about in the next session. With that, I will hand over to Sania for the for the closing bit.
Thank you so much, Sona. Okay, so I hope that everyone enjoyed today's session. As Sona said already, so this was the second session of the workshop series that has 4 sessions. Next one is next week on Thursday at the same time. So we are hoping to see you again, everyone, next week. And before we close, I just wanted to remind everyone that you can request for support in nutrition in emergencies. So this webinar workshop is organized by Global Nutrition Cluster, and we provide technical support to everyone who is involved in nutrition in emergencies, to all actors, and that can be local or national organization, INGO, UN agency, or local government. So anyone who is taking part in providing support in nutrition in emergency can contact us and search for support. We do provide different types of technical support. So it can be in-depth, in-country, or remote technical support. We can recommend consultant to you if you are searching for a longer time consultant. We can provide quick technical advices, and you can also visit the NNet portal if you want peer support. So all this is available on our website. So you can see the link down below. It's a Global Nutrition Cluster website. And when you go to that page, you will see a request support button. So now if you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is the page. So at the upper right corner, you see the green button. That is the support request support button. You can click on it, then the pop-up window will show up with the request form. It's gonna take like 5 minutes the maximum to fill it in, and then someone from our team is going to be reaching out to you to see how we can best support you. Okay, everyone. So we have come to the end of today's session. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Sona, very much for your facilitation. And I'm looking forward to seeing you everyone next week again.